Let's hit this year's moment of the year. This can be a game, a play, or even a tweet. For me, and I referenced it off the top, so let's hit it right away. My nominee that I present for moment of the year this women's college basketball season is that all things are possible through the power of Caitlin Clark, including an Iowa team that we were hashtag not worried about on this podcast back in January. We were not putting Jan Jensen on the hot seat in her first season in Iowa City. They host USC, at the time ranked number 2 in the country. Juju Watkins, of course, would go on to win the National Player of the Year award. And her USC team gets beat by Iowa on Caitlin Clark Day, in which the number 22 was honored and retired. And somehow, some way, the Hawkeyes, a team that so many believed may not even make the NCAA tournament at that point, people in their own state were turning on, were able to turn that around into an impressive run, not only through the home stretch of the regular season, but also in the Big Ten tournament, made the round of 32 once more in the NCAA tournament. And so, ho hum, Iowa right back to where they were pre Caitlin Clark. But when she's in the building, literally anything is possible. And for me, it's my moment of the year, Mitch, because watching it, it just reminded me how magical things tend to be when number 22 just happens to be around.
Yeah, and we saw number 33, Lucy Olsen, get drafted by the
Mm-hmm.
Washington Mystics. And I think that, that game really propelled Iowa for the rest of the season, got them into the NCAA tournament. And I think, it was a big moment for them. I got to talk to Lucy Olsen a little bit at that college All-Star game down in Tampa, and she's just like one of the
The
most
nicest.
delightful,
Yes.
nicest people I've ever met. Just like was incredibly just like happy to be there. I hope she does well with the Washington Mystics.
Yeah, I actually went down the rabbit hole of her TikTok. She's just so happy and
Yeah.
joyful. I'm very happy for Lucy. I hope she sticks around, a second round pick of the Mystics. Who is your nominee for moment of the year, Mitch?
My moment of the year nominee is this happened at the end of the NC State Notre Dame game in late February. I was sitting courtside for this one, sitting under the basket that this happened at. It's in double OT when Isaiah James comes down the floor and throws the ball behind her back to throw off Olivia Miles, and then lays up a bucket, and the whole place goes wild. I've never heard Reynolds Coliseum louder. NC State goes on to win, and like this is the big play, right? Like this is the one that was on all the shows, was on Twitter and all that stuff. This is going to be the highlight that they play when Isaiah James comes back to NC State one day, and I don't know if she gets her jersey retired or what. Like whenever she's honored there, like this will be the play that they play. Her driving down the court, tossing that ball behind her back in a little Allen Iverson type of moment, and laying that ball up over Olivia Miles. I picked this for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was just a ridiculously awesome play on a really big stage, because this was, kind of the clash of the two Titans in the ACC at that moment. College game day was in Raleigh. It was just a really big game. And number three, this game and this play might have broken Notre Dame. I think we're going to get to Notre Dame in a little bit, but like they were never the same after this. Like they had won, I don't know, like 19 games in a row before losing to NC State. And then, they lost another regular season game to Florida State. They went out early in the ACC tournament. And then, of course, we saw them lose in the Sweet 16 to TCU. And then Olivia Miles leaves. And so my theory is that this play and this game broke the Irish, and they were never the same after this.
We'll talk about it in a little bit. Let's just talk about it now because it's my
Okay.
nominee for the next award, which is Best Mess. By the way, producer Dimitri, we'll just say both of those. It's a tie for moment of the year because I know for Mitch, it's an emotional. He was there for the Isaiah James moment. I was, of course, invested in the Caitlin Clark Day affair. So we will just say that one's a tie, and we're going to go right to Best Mess because for me, I look, I know the product is also up for this Wubby this year. But rest in peace, Notre Dame women's basketball 2024 to 2025. And I hope it's not the end of the Niele Ivy era. But my goodness, Mitch, like the amount of tea and drama that I had no idea. Well, we kind of were hoping we'd get the tea and drama. We didn't expect you guys, the listeners in the comments on the YouTube version of our explanation of why is Olivia Miles transferring. We didn't expect you guys to come with the receipts and the rumor mill, but my God, like how did this thing devolve so quickly, especially knowing I remember when we recorded our preseason pod, one of our first episodes, we said this is either going to work great or it's going to end in a dumpster fire. And it looked like the best thing since sliced bread for 3.5 months. And then I just don't know what happened the final 3, 4 weeks of the season. But all that's left is literally Hannah Hidalgo, the last woman standing in South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah, it was ugly. And like you said, it did look like it was working so well. All the way up until, I mean, even after they lost to NC State, I think I came on this podcast and said I still think Notre Dame can win a national
We
championship.
both did.
So yeah, we both picked Notre Dame to win the national title, and they come back and they look pretty good in the first 2 rounds of the tournament, and then they just did not look good in that game against TCU in the Sweet 16. It just all fell apart really, really quickly. You saw a lot of bad body language. You saw a lot of players who looked like they didn't want to play with each other anymore, and I just thought. I don't know. At some point, I hope that we find out kind of what really actually happened here behind the scenes. I don't know that we ever will. I think some of us have some hope maybe for that ESPN documentary that was flying around Hannah Hidalgo. But like, there's all that stuff about like how it didn't work out. And then, almost immediately after losing that game to TCU, Olivia Miles announces she's going into the portal and then ends up at TCU, which is even more messy that you're going to the team that you lost to in the Sweet 16. And then you have the added layer of, those hour-long locker room meetings after those 2 late season losses, one after the loss to Florida State at home, and then the other one after the loss to Duke in the ACC tournament. Like I said before on this podcast, you don't have hour-long post-game meetings if there's something wrong with your locker room. So clearly something was not working. And then you had, of course, all the drama with Hannah Hidalgo, going back to last summer, sharing some not so great things on her Instagram that you could interpret as homophobic or interpret as just a young kid making some bad mistakes, whatever way you want to go. It was not a good look. And then not long after Olivia Miles goes into the transfer portal, we get a Players Tribune story from Hannah Hidalgo, which is like painted mostly as at the top and at the bottom, this thing about why she's so competitive and her love of Dragon Ball Z. And then sandwiched just deep into the story is just this line of like, I'm not homophobic, actually. And
why was that thrown in, Mitch? I don't know why they threw that in at all.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't really understand the messaging and the plan about that Players Tribune piece. I would have put an editor on that one as someone who has taken a lot of editing in his day. That one needed some work, I think, and maybe even a little bit more work than just the Notre Dame comms team, splicing it up a little bit. So yeah. Spicy season.
You do have another nominee for Mess of the Year, which may be my favorite award that we're going to give out at the Wubbies every year. But please tell us your other nominee, although I think I know where this one's trending.
Yeah. Well, while Notre Dame had a messy season, I think that Kayumi McMiller, a.k.a. The Product, also had a very messy season. Again, another player who came into her freshman season this year at Rutgers with a whole lot of hype. Jordan Brand All-American, 5-star recruit, Jordan Brand athlete, all this other stuff. Middle of the season gets suspended for, we still don't really know what actually happened. But the game she got suspended for was the game that Rutgers had to play against USC. So a lot of people were looking forward to this because it was like, oh, Kayumi Miller is going to get the chance to go head-to-head with Juju Watkins. I'm like, that'll be a lot of fun. She gets suspended. Then she goes to Instagram and a bunch of other social media places and kind of airs out the dirty laundry there and, tries to defend herself. It doesn't really come off super well. It was just all very, very messy. I think we said on this pod, she's not coming back to Rutgers. We can safely say that. And it was just, it just didn't work there. It was just very messy and very not great. Then kind of fast forward to this past week, where she's in the transfer portal. I was told that she was asking for, well, I don't want to say she, maybe I should say her camp. Mm-hmm. We're asking for a high dollar figure in terms of NIL, in terms of where she was going to end up. And that scared off some of the sort of more mainstream kind of heavy hitting teams from going after her. USF was in the mix at one point, Louisville, Florida State, like these teams that you see regularly in the NCAA tournament. On Saturday, I'm told that I think Talia Goodman also reported this. I sent it out there as well, that she had committed to and signed with Penn State. And a funny thing about the portal this year that's new, that coaches who have access to it can see, when a player signs to another team, it shows up as that in the portal. So Kyle Miller signs at Penn State. Okay, cool, great, awesome. But then on Monday, we get this like Instagram live thing where she's at the New York Stock Exchange, where she's going to announce her new destination. And it's like, you already signed. Like, I know that, maybe your boxing promoter agent like didn't know this. Her agent or her handler or her camp or whoever you want to call her, by the way, is a guy by the name of Leonard Ellerby, who was basically Floyd Mayweather's like promoter. So
So
he's
literally a boxing promoter. Continue, Mitch.
yeah. And so they set up this thing at the New York Stock Exchange where she announces and holds up the Penn State shirt and stuff. And it's like, okay, but we already knew this, and we knew this 2 days ago. So just very messy. I don't really know what the strategy there was with Kylie Miller. Obviously, the people in her camp think that she's worth a whole lot of money. I thought the announcement of the transfer thing was a bit muddled. Maybe if you wanted to announce it on your own, you shouldn't have signed 2 days before you were planning to do this Instagram live thing. And then you throw the suspension and the messy exit from Rutgers and all of that in there, and I think she has a good case. But certainly Notre Dame also a spicy season.
So which one's your pick? Because the product, I mean, look, the product almost stands alone. She may need her own honorary award if we're to go with Notre Dame. I feel like we go with Notre Dame because it truly was the story, in my opinion, of the second half of the college basketball season. With all due respect to UConn, with all due respect to Juju Watkins' unfortunate injury, the demise of Notre Dame, it truly just it gutted me. And maybe it's because we both sat here on this podcast and we picked them to win the national title.
Yeah, I think it's Notre Dame just because, the expectations were so high. And as I said before, to have, this combination of Olivia Miles, Maddie Westbelt, Sonia Citron, and Hannah Hidalgo, and to come up empty with nothing to show for it, not an ACC title, not a Final Four appearance, nothing, is a massive disappointment. And so I think, Notre Dame has to rebuild through the portal now. And I don't know. I don't even know what the expectations are for Notre Dame next year because we don't know what their roster is going to look like.